Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are the YB Teen Health. We are part of the Empowering Teens Through Health Youth Advisory Board, and we're focusing today on accessing help without fear. And to start us off, we have Alicia.
I'm Alicia.
I'm Pamela.
I'm Samantha, and we're here with.
Miss Mosquera.
Yeah, so Miss Mosquera, could you just briefly tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Miss Mosquera. I am a school-based social worker from the John D. O'Brien. I'm actually born and raised from the city of Boston. I went to BPS myself. Um, I don't know if folks are familiar with Posse, but I'm a Posse alumna. So I went to school all the way in Danville, Kentucky. and I've always had a passion for like community and giving back. I think personally, my family was exposed to like a level of violence and specifically community violence, and that kind of empowered me to really figure out how to practice harm reduction within our communities. And then when I came back from center, I enrolled in the master's program of social work at Boston College, where I got my certificate also with the Latino Leadership Initiative, where I took a lot of my social work classes in Spanish. And then after that, once I graduated, I graduated right about when like that administration of that time was separating families at the border. So I did a lot of work with migrant families. And then right after that, I got another job doing violence prevention and recovery, specifically working with survivors and individuals impacted by violence. And I was just kind of really tired of all the trauma. And I decided to, you know what if I just did more prevention work? What if I just talked to the youth earlier? What if I had access to them before we got to this point? And simultaneously, I still work at Boston Children's Hospital as an emergency department social worker because I love medical social work, but my Monday to Friday job is here at the OB.
Nice. And just to start off with the questions, what do you think makes it hard for people to ask for help?
I think you named it earlier, Samantha, fear. Also, I think stigma. I think it could be a lot of things, honestly. But I'm going to go ahead and say it's definitely fear and stigma of the unknown, right? What if sometimes we're so familiar with chaos that when we think of a solution that actually can lead to healing, we become really fearful. Mm-hmm. So most folks are not able to access care for a lot of reasons, but one of them is fear. A lot of them is like the ignorance, like I said earlier, but also other barriers like language, right? How do I tell somebody that I can't sleep at night in my own language? How am I able to access that level of support? And I will also say that part of what causes a lot of folks the inability to access care or to seek it because most of the time we think we can resolve it on our own. If I just do this a little different, but my patterns is telling me that I'm not going to do it any different, right? Because I probably survived this way for so long. So part of it is also thinking we can handle it on our own. And I think one of the bravest thing anybody can do is ask for help. And we forget the power of community. Have you ever felt really sad and then when you're with your friend you feel 10 times better?
Yeah.
Or you're with your safe person?
Yeah.
Right? I think part of that is identifying that we have safe people all the time, and that's always a start in getting the help that we need.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was like really, really great. Thank you. So what would you say are some emotional or physical signs that someone may need help mentally?
So I'm gonna go divide in two parts. I'm gonna go from the obvious and then the functional piece, right? Some of the obvious pieces when you hear folks having a lot of worry, anxiety, excessive, like feeling sad 90% of the week. Those are some emotions that come up. I think anger is such a huge mask for sadness. And then physical could be anything from like we don't even realize, but back pain could be very telling, tiredness, fatigue, feeling down, not having any energy. Um, I'm thinking also like kind of just oversleeping, undersleeping. We become also, one thing I talk to my students about is the instant gratification and delayed gratification. Are we familiar with this? Yeah. Right. So instant gratification is, and I know I got to do this homework, but I'm going to sit on social media for 20 minutes because that makes me feel better right now. And I don't have to worry about whatever heaviness comes with this assignment, whether I'm failing the class, whether my parents want me to do really good in science, whether I can't stand that teacher, whatever's going on with you. So we're going to go ahead and engage 20 minutes on social media. I think delayed gratification is realize that this is the hard work and we got to get to it. So one of the things that I notice a lot when we're trying to avoid a feeling or something, we just avoid it, right? So we're doing things that are not high are not really big priorities, but for us it just makes us feel better. um and that's usually a sign like, hey, what are we avoiding? I think avoidance is also a huge one. I think people manipulate sometimes to also survive. I think depending on the level of trauma you come from, those are also telling signs. And then there's some of us that just function. We function within the, we're so in tune with these feelings, we'll function with, I don't know if you all heard of functional depression. It is a thing, right? You're kind of just really pouring into everybody, not yourself, or just doing what needs to get done, but there's not a pause in order to truly like fulfill what you need as an individual. I know I said a lot. Is there any questions about that? That's kind of a summary of what I feel on the spot. But once you get into the complexity of different individuals, it's not all the same.
So you're saying it varies by person?
Absolutely. It could vary by person or by culture. Um, I think when I identify as Afro Latina and growing up, I mean, talking about mental health wasn't a thing. You would pray on it. And if you pray on it, it'll go away, right? Isn't that how it's supposed to work? And then you realize that that's not how grief works all the time. That's not how. That's not the solution for everything. Faith could be a great anchoring, but there's other things that can also play a role if we're not there.
So would you say that there are any like small signs that some people like might ignore?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think some small signs, and remember, mental health is a big thing, right? We can't. I'm talking about anxiety and depression because what I see a lot, but some people have personality disorders. Some people have bipolar. Like there's different. There's a whole DSM-5. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's literally this big of diagnosis of different things. ADHD, right? I can't get anything done, right? However, your brain decides to function to survive. But yeah, there could be small things that can let you know. I think it's small things over time, right? Like if you wake up late every day for 5 minutes, it's not a problem until it is, right? But you're already in the habit of waking up late, like 5 minutes late. And I say that to say sometimes there's little things that start creep up on us and we don't always notice, right? Because we're too busy getting through our routines, and sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, I've been having a headache for like the last 5 days. Maybe I should lay down. Maybe I am not having sleep. Maybe that's why I'm upset. Maybe that's why I miss a loved one more than usual during this time, whether they're present or no longer in the physical world. Like all these things play a role. And I don't think mental health just creeps. Things happen to people, right? We go through life, and I think we lose things and we gain things, and that plays a role in how we experience our lives.
Okay, this is like a group question, so anyone can answer this. But have you ever like any of us ignored our own stress or like our own emotions because we thought they weren't like serious enough? Okay, I'll go first. I'm trying to think of a time. I did actually, but that was like for a few years. Like I think like during COVID, and then like a little after COVID, it was kind of like I was kind of like dismissing how I was feeling. One, like we said this multiple times before, but like the cultural influence when it comes to mental health, and then on top of that, there was like just the way like the people I was around, like that's not something I felt like I couldn't talk to them about. So I think that did definitely happen to me, and like the effect of that kind of like it just got worse. Like I was really just getting worse. And yeah.
You know what's crazy? Now that you say that, I don't know if I want to say crazy, but you know what's a little bit ironic is you're right, right? I think part of it is cultural, and I think while you were talking, I think there was two things I thought. One, I don't want to burden people with my
Yeah.
problems, right? Like, why would I call my friend? I know she lost her father. Why would I tell her that I'm feeling sad because my mom doesn't understand me? We start feeling like our problems are like small compared
Small,
to other
yeah.
people, which is it's your truth, right? You can only carry what you live with. The second piece is I was thinking generations. I don't know. I think for me, I know that I didn't notice enough of my stress because part of it was like, you got to get through it. When
Yeah.
I was growing up, we got this and this and we were all right. And then now that I'm an adult, I'm like, were you? Like, right? You're like,
Yeah.
I don't think you're all right. I think we developed some very bad habits and coping skills, but we could talk about it later. But that's totally like, yeah, I'm just trying to validate kind of
Yeah.
that cultural piece. We don't even realize it.
And to add on to what you said, like I feel like a lot of it too is that they go through stuff, they don't know how to handle it, they just think it's normal and then they pass it on. And it
Mm.
just makes everything worse. Like they pass on their trauma to us. They won't realize
Mm-hmm.
it's trauma, but to us it's also traumatizing us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing.
That's a good point. That generational trauma is real.
Yeah, I would say my answer isn't really, I guess, a satisfying answer, but I would say that I like ignore my own stress and emotions like on the daily, kind of like all the all the time. I think it definitely is like a cultural thing and kind of my upbringing. Like I was always taught like I'm young. There's like why are you tired? Like you're not you just go to school and you come home like there's nothing to be tired about. You don't have to pay any bills and like I understand I guess to an extent that perspective, but having like been like having your feelings minimized like on the regular, it kind of you
Mm-hmm.
kind of just like start to do it without even realizing. Um and so yeah, I would say that. And so that's something that I definitely have to work on just myself and I recognize that, but it's definitely going to be a long battle.
The unlearning is hard sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I don't know, like I feel like I do brush off my stress sometimes, but I feel like I place like a lot of my self-worth on my grades, and that leads to me being stressed like every day. Like like if I'm like struggling in a grade, like maybe I'll get like really stressed, right? But then I would put my priority in the grade over my stress.
Hmm. Yeah. So that management piece kind of
Yeah.
lacks because you're just surviving, and you will get through it. I promise you do get through it. I think we learning what works for us and the grades pieces. As you all were speaking, I was thinking too. I think for me, one of my lowest points was probably in college. So here I am, a girl from Boston, born and raised, right? I'm coming from what I feel is diverse Boston, right? Because some people have a different experience of the city. But you think when I went to Kentucky, everybody looked like me? I was like, what? What? Why you talk like that? Right? Like in my head, it was a lot. And I remember going through a depression because I realized I was putting my worth in the way other people received me and experienced me. And so we get caught up in our negativity, right? It takes like I think before you get to one positive thought, you go through five negative ones first. So just think how exhausting that is. And I think I realized that I'm putting my worth compared to like what I'm given and how people perceive me. And then moving forward, I realized like that's why like youth of color in predominantly white institutions experience high levels of stress and mental health because the permission to experience things takes a while. And I think one of the things that I had to learn was like we all have purpose here, but finding our purpose just might take a little bit.
Okay, so what are ways to overcome these barriers of being afraid to reach out for help?
I think one of the first things to I suggest anybody is identify a safe person if you have one, and I'll go through what if you don't have one. A safe person is not the person that's going to be a yes person to you. It's also going
Mm-hmm.
to be like, girl, we're here again. We're calling that therapist. Girl, we're here again. You know, we're doing this, right? Nope,
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling your mom, right? I've experienced where like youth come to me about their friends because they're truly concerned about what their friends are saying. They're like, this doesn't feel right. I can't carry this on my own. I need an adult. So ideally, identify your safe person, but also talk to a trusted adult. And for folks that don't have a trusted adult and or a safe person, because that's the truth for for a lot of people, um, there's a lot of resources where you can call, just ask a question. There's nothing wrong with asking a question. Hey, I need help with this, or I'm going through this. Where do I start? Right? What's a good place to start? And sometimes I definitely tell people, hey, if you got to pretend it's not you, pretend like you're asking for your best friend and see what advice they give you and move from there. But always find a trusted adult um, and ask for people from advice from people you feel comfortable. So I have definitely parents who ask me for advice simply because I speak the language and they feel comfortable in being able to receive the information.
Okay, and how do you think we can create, or yeah, in general, how we can create a safe school environment for kids to ask for help?
I think that we need to continue to cultivate community within our schools, and we don't do that enough. Um, I do think like adults also I think there needs to be a connection between youth and adults, or we're like, hey, I'm human too, right? And I get it, and this is why I can guide you through that purpose. And I'm not talking about just lecturing. I'm sure we all had a teacher that loved to lecture you about life, but I'm saying like more like that connection, but really building community in our schools and accessibility. We need more. We need more social workers. We need more counselors. We need more psychologists. We need more. We need more. We need more. We need more. There's a high need everywhere, and one student can take me 2 hours if they have a high need, and it could leave 3 students without a check-in. Like, that's how high the need is often. And I think we just need more. So that accessibility is creating safe environments where youth can be vulnerable, students can be vulnerable, adults can be a safe keeper, and also like us having good relationships with our community resources, which a lot of schools do, but tapping into our community that has amazing resources, whether it be therapeutic or creative, in order to support our families and our students.
Yeah, and I agree. I also think it's like we need more like people in schools to help students because, like you said, like a student could take hours, and then there's three other students
Mm-hmm.
that didn't have a check in. I feel like that happens to me sometimes. Sometimes I really need to talk to like my counselor or something, and it's only one, and it's like
Mm.
I can't talk to them, and it's like maybe the whole week I go without talking to them. So I think in schools there needs to be more like social workers so kids can talk to them.
And I think it's also having like remembering who we're serving. Like, I definitely, even when a student's vulnerable enough to ask for help, sometimes half the battle is talking to the parent. What do you mean my child has mental health stuff going on? And like having confidence that, like, I think part of the things that I do when I'm talking to any of my students is like, I'm gonna walk you through it, because I know this person, you love this person, this is your parent, your guardian, whoever, and let's walk through it. But there's a confidence in knowing that I'm gonna get you through the other side. And if we don't, then guess what? I get to see you tomorrow, and we're gonna work through it again and again until, because there's no perfect formula to this. And I wish I can answer your questions where it's like very tangible, but I feel like if I gave you those tangible, like, okay, yes, we could do these things, and there's different resources to tap into, but it's never linear. Nobody ever just tells, let me go tell a social worker that I've been sad all day. Usually it might be a teacher that noticed, or it
Yeah.
might be your friend that goes like, Miss Mosquera, so and so needs a check in. I don't know what's wrong with them. Or it might be another colleague that's like, why is that person continuously outside, crying? Like, there's different ways where students come out. And so really finding that community piece, I think, is key, because that allows us to take care of each other in
Hmm.
unison.
Um, what role do you think parents play in students reaching out for help?
A huge role. I think a lot of us care about what our parents think of us. I think that's natural. I think they play a huge role. Um, and I think sometimes it can limit, and I promise you, a significant amount of time, some parents don't take it as bad as their students think they would. Some parents are like, I didn't know. I wish I would have known. I'm sorry I wasn't receptive. I've definitely had those breakthrough conversations with parents. And they're the first one they'll show up. They might argue in the process, but we'll figure it out, right? And so I do think that part of it, parents can definitely be a stress factor for students, but it also end up being a protective factor, because guess what? That's who you go into after school, and Miss Mosquera can't go right after 2 o'clock. I'm out, you're out. So then I need to make sure you're safe, and to have a safe adult at home and identifying that is huge. Or whomever it is in your life. For some folks, it's mentors. For some folks, it is therapist, and that definitely is a start.
Do you know of any resources that would be good for BPS students for mental health?
So we do have a Department of Behavioral Health. Are you aware of that? So there is a Department of Behavioral Health tapping into that. I think any resources you ever need, always go to your counselors and your social workers, because they could tap in. So let's say somebody's struggling in particular with grief. We can always be of resource to connect you to agencies that support. Your primary care is also a good, when you go to your doctors and they ask you, hey, have you been feeling sad? Has anybody been asked that question? Yeah. Say, yeah, I've been really sad actually, right? And whether that stress is about school, whether that stress, please don't ever let your truth feel like it's not worth being heard. And your truth is always worth being heard, right? And some people are like, oh, that's just teenage stuff. But I guess what? I'd rather you tell me and we talk it through than you hold it by yourself, because that's when it starts turning into other things.
What is one step that anybody can take um, when trying to prioritize their mental health?
Your habits. It's simple. Sleep, drink water. When you're most stressed, or when I have a crying student, the first thing I do is offer them water. When I'm in the trauma room in the hospital, the first thing I do is offer the parent is water, because our adrenal glands, right, they're right above our kidneys or right around in that area. They're pumping cortisol through our body. So we're like, we're going through all these emotions, and water actually flushes it down. So it sounds silly when we say be hydrated, but no, if you hydrate, it's actually very helpful in order for your brain. Sleep. What do you do in the morning to get ready? I invite anybody to really make an hour, wake up an hour before you're supposed to get ready. and divide it into the things you want to get done, whether it be journaling, whether it be reflecting, whether it be organizing your room. Take an hour for yourself, right? Whether sometimes it's my dog and myself, and I'll drink coffee in silence. No phone, not anything, natural light, and I'm just being present, and I'm practicing gratitude, prayer. That stuff is proven to like flip the neuroscience of your brain, that chemistry, it starts changing. So our habits can lead us to extraordinary things, but when it's the small habits that really can limit ourselves and impact our mental health. So going to bed at 2 and expecting to be productive by 7 is not real. Being on your phone for hours, put down your phone 30 minutes before you go to bed. Social media, try to detox from social media for a week, see what happens, see how you feel, and do like testimony of what your spirit and your being is feeling. And I think there's also, you could always contact somebody, but it's the smallest habits that could. And I never understood why a doctor would tell me to sleep more. I'm like, yeah, right, I'm 16, what are you talking about? But now that I'm older, I realize like, no, because when I sleep more and I'm able to wake up and I'm more productive, I'm more viable to self. So then if my coffee spills, I'm like, I prayed this morning, I prayed. I just grab the mop. Versus when I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a rush, I can't. Right now, I'm already dysregulated, getting my day started. So how you start your day and end your day could be vital on how you manage everything, because life is gonna happen. But self-care is really just doing those necessary things for self, right? Um, and like for me, it is going to a nail salon, but that's a whole other conversation. But it's those small things that really do matter. That's how I feel like anybody can get ahead of their mental health, is really what works for me. And like realizing that like gaming for hours or being on the phone with a friend until 12 is not always something you need to do. Putting yourself boundaries for self-respect is huge. Like, I gotta go to bed. Like, I need to get rest, right? And I might be tossing and turning. Okay, let me let my feelings out somewhere. Let me read a boring book so I can fall asleep. But those little things do matter, because I feel many times when I'm supporting youth, is those little things. I'm going to bed late. So now I don't not doing any work. Now I'm behind. I didn't study for that test. Now I'm super anxious. I didn't practice any grounding skills. That is proven. And remember, your brain, which is the mental, right? It is a muscle. I don't know if anybody does sports here, but it is a muscle, right? If you lift, if you're lifting for the first time, you're not gonna lift with 30 pounds or 40 pounds. That's gonna hurt. You want to start little. You want to increase that stamina. Your brain is a muscle. It does the same thing, but we forget that. And we exercise our brain with our habits, with reading, with study habits, with this. But most importantly, take care of you. Wake up anytime you have the ability to wake up. I always encourage you to practice with gratitude. Like, thank you for allowing me to wake up today. Whatever you want to think. I say, I don't care if it's a piece of brick, but you just thank for waking up, and that even saying it out loud, even affirmations, it really starts shifting your brain chemistry, and it allows you to really cope with things, because life's coming, it's not stopping. But how you manage it is really what's going to help you sustain your mental health. And if you break down, you're going to break down. That's what we get involved with those adults and those services.
Thank you so much, Miss Mosquera, for joining us
No
today.
worries.
Everything you said was super valuable, super authentic and honest, and I think that's what everyone needs to hear. Like, we don't always have perfect answers, and like when it comes to mental health, that's just how it is. And I really love how you offered ways that people, like small ways that people can really help themselves. We really want you guys to drive home is that it's okay to reach out to others. Please take advantage of the resources. um, and one little, sometimes the toughest thing is just asking for help, but
Mm-hmm.
try it and you'll see that, you're doing more good than harm for yourself. And so, yeah, thank you so much. If you're struggling or need someone to talk to, don't wait. Help is always available. That's the Mental Health Podcast. Thank
Thank
you.
you.